Hello chess friends and welcome to Azarov's chess channel and welcome to the TCEC season 15 super final. So again we have a clash between the two top engines, Leela C0 against Stockfish, and in round 10 Leela managed to win a game. Leela before this round 12 that I wanted to show you today was 1 point ahead of in front of Stockfish. So today we'll see again a very nice tactical and also nice positional game in this so-called French defense. And I've talked about this human aspect of Leela in my previous videos. So Leela has made some many sort of humanish moves, like mocking these other engines by moving this not the best moves just in order to prolong the game. So we have also in one round in which Leela promoted to rook, not promoting to queen, so also making a little bit fun in the game. And today we'll see, well, the human aspect of Leela, of this possibility to make a blunder. It's unbelievable. You see how Leela managed to play a blunder in a late stage of the game and lost the game because of it. But the human aspect of this move was that I think that Leela was trying to win the game in a completely drawish game. So maybe the calculations were not the best, but you see, we will see Leela will have this up exchange situation, so Leela will have the rook for the bishop, but it will be really drawish position in which Leela tries to make some progress and gets punished for it. Got punished for doing it, and this move was really bringing back into the game Stockfish. So let's see now the game. We have e4. As said, the e6, the French defense, d4, d5, knight from b to d2, the Tarrasch variation, and now knight on f6. Now e5, and this is now always this important moment in the game when we have this blocked situation in the center. So it's this so-called directed center. You see, of course, white's gonna try to make some progress on the king side, and of course black is going to try to make some progress on the queen side, because the pawns are always showing that's the direction of the attack. The main idea, of course, from black's perspective, is to play on this d4 weakness, and the white's idea is to crack the position here, maybe through the move f5. And okay, here the common move order. Now knight on d7 was played, f4, of course, with the preparation to play the move f5, but this f5 has to be prepared. You see that Leela will not be able to push this pawn on f5, so of course here Stockfish immediately pushes the pawn on c5. Now we have c3. Stockfish wants to rely simply on this, Leela wants to rely simply on this central control, and of course knight on c6 attacking the d4, and now knight from b to f3. And okay, this is also sort of a line in this French variation, but there is this problem now. You see, you have problems to develop this knight. If you play knight on h3, okay, you're basically aiming on the same square like this knight on f3. So basically what you want to do maybe is sort of a transposition on f2 and support maybe the pawn on g4, a potential pawn breakthrough with move as this g4, and then of course in the continuation to play the move f5. But you see, you need many moves in order to do that. If you try something like knight on e2, then you're blocking out your bishop. So as said, although it's a line, I still don't like it because, as said, you have already also played twice with your knight, so lost many tempos just in order to get the central control. And of course here queen on b6, simply putting more pressure on this d4. And now g3. We have bishop on e7, and maybe here for Stockfish was a better continuation to play immediately c takes d4. And okay, look, c takes d4, now f6, which is also a common move in the French defense. So here after maybe e takes f6, we have bishop on b4 first, bishop d2, bishop takes, queen takes, and now knight on f6. And it's really hard to protect now this weak e4 square. If you try something like bishop on d3, then you get knight on e4 anyway, takes, and here knight on e5, but then you lose simply this pawn. And as said, maybe better continuation, c takes d4, but here Stockfish decides to go really calm into the game with the move bishop on e7, and of course preparing to castle. King on f2. Okay, it might seem to you that this is dangerous because you're getting on the same diagonal as the queen, but still black will need more attackers against this d4 pawn. So basic idea here is to play bishop on g2, or even stay with the bishop on this diagonal and maybe bring the king on g2, because look, in this continuation, as said, we saw the problems with this knight on h3 idea, and if you try to develop the bishop on this diagonal, it doesn't bring you so much. The bishop is again not good. The best square, of course, for the bishop would be the d3, but if you play something like bishop at d3, then you have lost your connection between the queen and this pawn. So you see, Leela has many troubles to find the best squares for the pieces. So here, after king on f2, a5 was played, and this a5 is really a tricky positional move here by Stockfish, because one of the ideas here for white can be to try maybe a3 and b4 in order to really stop the attack here on the queen side. And of course, I've explained, we have here the so-called directed pawn structure in the center, and then if you in this types of position manage to block out the side that your opponent is better on, so with the move b4 here for an example, you will have a huge advantage in the continuation of the game, because then it's basically a one-way ticket. We are playing simply on this side, so on the queens we have solved the problems on the queen side. So that's why Stockfish prevents this idea after with the move a5. So now you see a3 is not possible, because we have now really good control of the square b4, and of course there's no way that white is going to take this pawn, because then you get bishop on c5, and you see you will have a very nice diagonal. So that's why here a4 was played, and now comes this idea. We have c takes d4, c takes, and now knight on b8 with the preparation to play the move knight on a6, and then knight on b4, the knight outpost, and this will be an unchallengeable knight here on this very nice square, because you don't have any more the pawns on the c on a file in order to kick it away. So far very nice positional game by this top engine Stockfish. Knight on e2 was played, and here castling. King on g2, and now knight on a6, as promised this idea, knight on c3, and now f6. So again, the same idea, the same example how you should really break this pawn center in the with this pawn majority on the king side. So that's why this f6 is really important. And now Stockfish, Leela makes sort of a mistake with the move h4, because here a good continuation could be here e takes f6, and if you try bishop on f6, then here simply to play the knight outpost ourselves. Here if you try something like bishop on d7, then you have knight on e5, knight takes, and now f takes e5, and you see a tricky idea could be maybe bishop on e5, but here you can escape with the king, and you cannot support anymore the attack here, because white has good possibilities to defend here from this potential rook on h5 or rook on h6 ideas. So that's why you see after f takes e5, maybe bishop on e7, but again you have continued the game with this very nice center, and then maybe you have now finally the possibility to play the move bishop on d3 and try this common attacks on the king side. So that's why here you see Leela played this move h4, and now we have simply f takes e, and now d takes e5. You see, if you try to take with the f pawn, Well, then you get this tricky line. Rook takes on f3, and queen takes on f3, and now knight on d4. Maybe queen on d1 can be the continuation, now bishop on d7, but now after knight on b5 we can simply trade off these pieces on this b5, and here I think it's a playable game for black, although down the exchange, but we have a supported pass pawn, which is really hard to challenge now for white, because we have a dark square bishop, and here the pawns are on light squares. So if queen on g4, we can really defend here and try to push this pawn. We have also here 2-on-1 situation by these two pawns. So as said, I think it's completely playable. So that's why instead of f takes e5, you see you have to play d takes e5, and this is now also sort of a static position, because again it's really hard now for white to push the pawn here on f5, which is the main idea in the French defense. And here h6 was played by Stockfish, preventing some knight on g5 ideas in order to attack this e6 pawn. Here bishop on d3, finally this bishop comes on this very active square, and now knight from a to b4. Bishop on b1, and the bishop hides now a little bit on this very active square, but still stays on a very nice diagonal. And you see now the importance of this knight on b4, because it prevents this queen to play on c2 or maybe here on d3, and creating this battery, which could be really deadly here on light squares. And if you try to challenge this knight, maybe with moves this knight on a2, you have another knight which can reload sort of a little bit the position on b4. So as said, here the position on the queen side is fixed. We don't have any problems here from black's perspective on the queen side. Still, we have to be careful, because of course white is going to try some pawn breakthroughs here on the king side. Bishop on d7, connecting the rooks, and this is now the main advantage here by Stockfish. Stockfish has connected the rooks. Stockfish has played with the queen, has moved with the queen from the 8th rank, so Stockfish has finished now the development, and here it's a very good continuation to play, because now we have also the possibility to play the rook on c8. As said, here the vulnerable point in white's position would be the square c2. Knight on a2 was played as promised, also this challenging of this important knight, but now rook on c8, and now king on h3. This king on h3, it seems a little bit awkward, but it's a good move in order to support this potential g4 moves, because you see all of these pieces here by black are a little bit moved away from the king side. They're all aiming on the king's queen side, and you don't have worries here to get some checkmate threats or some material advantages on the king side. So that's why here king on h3 can be played, and now bishop on e8. This is now, of course, sort of a try to improve the position of the bishop, because the bishop is a little bit stuck here also, because it's blocked out by this pawn on e6. Knight takes on b4, knight takes on b4, and now rook on a3. Because rook on a3, this is an important rook move, because you cannot connect these rooks anymore like black did a couple of moves ago, because you have two bishops, and it doesn't bring you so much to bring them into the game. You see this bishop is blocked out by this knight anyway. It cannot play anymore on c2 and d3, and you don't want to lose, of course, this bishop, because the bishop light square bishop here from white's perspective is the best piece. So that's why here bishop on c5 was played, and now bishop on d2. Maybe Leela's idea was to challenge this annoying knight here on b4, because it's really well cemented, and here queen on a6 was played, also controlling this d3 square, and now rook on c3. We have now b5, and this is a very good move finally now to get the breakthrough on the queen side, because we have played a perfect attack on the queen side, and now it's finally time to break through in the position. So queen on c1, this could be also tricky line, of course, to make moves as f5, and then make some make some sacrifices on h6, but of course we have also this double attack on the bishop, so that's why here queen on b6 had to be played, and now knight on d4. Of course you cannot take because you lose simply the rook on c8, so that's why here b takes a4 first, and now bishop on e3. And now the fun starts. We have bishop on d7. The rooks are again now connected, so it means in the next move we could really take maybe this knight on d4. So that's why knight on f5 was played. And let's see now. Bishop takes on e3. We have this in-between check. If you try something like king on h8, then it's basically game over because you get knight takes on c8, and if rook takes, we have rook takes, and here queen takes on c8, so it will be game over. So that's why king on f7 had to be played, and now we have knight on c8, rook takes on c8, and now queen takes on e3. Now Stockfish plays of course the fork with the move d4, but now queen on f2 you cannot of course take because you simply lose the queen, so that's why queen on b7, and now rook from c to c1. And okay, we have now d3, and now Leela fixes the position here on the king side with the move h5. And this is now really complicated position because Leela is up the exchange, but still we have this very annoying pawn, and you see this pawn will be the most important thing in the continuation of the game. And the good thing is that it's supported by this knight on b4, and still we have some possibilities to go into the game through light squares here by this light square bishop, by Stockfish light square bishop. So here, pardon me, I have to go back. So here after d3, h5 was played, and now rook takes on c1, rook takes, and now queen on d5. And this is something annoying if you try something like rook on c7 in order to get a better activity with the rook. Well, then you get d2, and this could be game over here for white because you see how dangerous this pawn is. If you move the rook, we have the possibility to push the pawn on d2, and that's why this rook is not an active one. It's really stuck a little bit to the defense of this potential d2. So that's why Leela tried here the king on h4. And again, it's not so dangerous to play with the king here on this very awkward square because we want to support the king. Has to be active in a potential endgame, so this could be evaluated also as an endgame. So now our main idea is to play the move g4 and then maybe a pawn breakthrough with the move g5. Bishop on c6 was played, and now g4. As said, g5 the main idea, that's why king on e8, getting out of the attack of the pawns, and now rook on f1. We have queen on d8 with the check, king on g3, and now queen on d5. Rook on d1, again you see the rook has to be an object of defense. We cannot play actively with the rook. We have seen the problems with this move d2. Queen on b3 attacking the rook, and now rook on d2, and here the position is basically a draw. But now queen on c4, and here rook on d1, queen on b3. We have sort of repetition of the moves. Now Leela tries to create a blockade with the queen, but again queen on bishop on e4, again supporting just this very important d3. If, of course, white managed to capture this pawn on d3, then it will be game over for black. But you see, Stockfish has calculated this variation very well, that it's really possible to stay onto this pawn. So here rook on e1 was played, and now bishop on b7. So you see, Leela could have played here some perpetual moves, again maybe rook on d1 and rook on e1, and Stockfish would be forced to repeat the moves. But here after rook on d1 we have bishop on e4 again, and now king on h4. And this is now the moment in which Leela decides to go for the win. So okay, brave thing, congratulations for playing really bravely. But here finally now queen on d5, and now queen on c3. King on f7, we have queen on c3, and now king on g8, queen on c3 again, we have king on h7, and now king on h3, king on g8 again, and again Stockfish is just trying to make a draw here with repetition of the moves. King on h4, again king on h7, king on g3, king on g8. We have queen on c8, again king on h7, queen on c1, and now queen on b3. This is now tricky because if maybe bishop on f3 would have been the better continuation, you're forcing again white to play the move rook on d2, again to create the blockade with the rook, and maybe it was a better line for Stockfish. But here queen on b3 was played. Again, it's hard for Stockfish to attack, for Leela to attack this pawn on d3, and here Leela has to play again the blockade with the move queen on d2, king on g8, and again Stockfish is satisfied with the draw here, king on g8, and now g5 finally. We have king on f8 getting out, really out of the attack, because you don't want to take, of course, here h takes g5, because it will open the f file. So that's why king on f8, just waiting and see what white was going to do here. And here g6, and now we have king on e7. And you see, Stockfish has battled now very well against this in this situation 4 on 3 with his pawns. So again, this f5 is not possible because of course the bishop is protecting this potential pawn breakthrough through the square f5. And here we have this blocked out situation, so this pawn structure is paralyzed here. And now finally maybe Stockfish can go with some a3 ideas in order to create a pass pawn situation here on the a file. So king h3 was played, and now king on e8, king on h4, queen on c4, king on g3, and now bishop on f5. Fixing really the position, and this is now really an equal position because white cannot go into the game with this queen with the rook, and black cannot also make progress with this pawn. So that here Leela makes again inaccuracy with the move queen on c3, and here we have Stockfish immediately played queen takes on c3, b takes c3, and now knight on c2. This is now the problem. In this situation, Stockfish managed to create another pass pawn, but again it's an equal position. Here king on f2 was played, a3. You see, it's not easy here for black to make this a2 move. This a2 move is the main idea now. Bishop on a2, king on d7, bishop on b3, and now king on c7. But you see, the problem from black's perspective, we cannot somehow support this a3 with the king, because this pawn on c3 and the bishop on b3 are restricting here all of the squares through which maybe black could go into the game. So that's why, as said, I think here it's a completely drawish position. And here rook on g1 was played, king on d7, and now Leela makes this decisive mistake in the game. It was the move king on f3, and this is now the problem, because it gives now Stockfish the possibility to play the move d2. So you see, if you have played maybe something like bishop on e2, then bishop on e4 again, we can simply make these perpetual moves here, queen on c4. So if you try something like d2 here immediately, then simply rook on d1, and it's not a problem. But in the continuation, maybe bishop on c4, bishop on f5, bishop on a2, king on c6. We want to go into the game with the king, but again, rook on d1. You see, king on b5. We can simply play bishop on b3, bishop on g4. Here we can simply take, and that's game over here for black. So that's why you cannot play with this bishop. You can try maybe something like, I don't know, bishop on e4, and we can simply play with the king, and it's not a problem. But here, as said, Leela makes the decisive mistake with the move king on f3, and now d2 is possible, because if you try something like rook on d1, well, then you get bishop on g4, and that's the problem. You see, if you have to move, you have to take the bishop. So we have now the fork, then maybe king on f3, and now we can simply take, and this pawn is hanging. If you take out the knight, then you get this move a2, and this is a huge blunder. I don't know what happened with Leela. So here, as said, king on f3, completely losing move. Here, of course, d2, and now king on e2 had to be played, and now you see Stockfish can play now the knight on e1. You cannot, of course, take, because again you get the fork on f3 now. So after knight on e1, we have king on d1, but now simply knight on f3, we have rook on h1. If you try something like rook on f1 in order to attack the knight, then you get this tricky move, bishop on g4. If you try something like bishop on a4, okay, we can play the king on c7, it's not a problem. Rook on h1, and here you see again this a2 is really deadly, and it's basically game over here. So you see, one move costed here Leela the game. Rook on h1 was played, and now bishop on d3, bishop on a4. We have again king on e7, bishop on b3, and now bishop on b1. This is now the preparation, of course, to play the move a2. So that's why here Leela tries at least to attack this knight, rook on h3, but now bishop on e4 again, and now rook on h1. Knight on e5 was played. Very, very nice idea. You see, within a double attack on the rook. So that's why rook on f1 had to be played, and now a4. Again, if you take out the knight, of course we can simply take the bishop, and we have now two pawns on the 6th rank, or in this, from black's perspective, we have them on the 3rd rank, and this cannot be stopped anymore by the rook. So that's why here, after bishop on a2 was played, and now knight on f3 again, protecting the pawn on d2. Rook on h1 was played, bishop on d3, rook on h3, and now rook on bishop on f5, and again the same problem. If you trace something like rook on f3, then we can again simply play on the fork. Takes, maybe here takes, but the problem is you lose these two pawns, and again it will be a completely winning endgame for black. So that's why rook on h1, we have king on d6, the pieces are connected here, bishop on c4, bishop on b1 was played, and now rook on h3. In this position, Leela resigned, although she has played the move, but here you have a very, very nice tricky move, bishop on d3. And you see, if you take out bishop on d3, then you get a2, so it's again game over. If you don't react, you see again we have the possibilities to push the pawn here, maybe on a2. As said, this king on f3 move, let's go back. This costed really Leela the game here in this position. As said, king on f3, very, very bad move, and Leela got punished in a completely drawish position. Okay, you see, the top engines are also making mistakes. I don't know what happened with this Leela engine, but okay. I don't know about the calculations. Maybe Leela was tired from traveling or something else. Okay, but we'll see what will happen in the next rounds. Still many rounds to play, and I'm really enjoying this top engines because, as said, I always love to say they're playing this really cool lines that help me to improve my chess game in some particular openings, and I'm really looking forward for the continuation of the series. Okay, meanwhile you can watch my other commented chess games played by these top engines, and you can also watch my best chess games of all time, in which I show you the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history, and you can also subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.